Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Carl.
And I'm the other Carl, otherwise known as Joanne.
And today we're in our camper and at an exotic location.
Adjacent to my kitchen and my chicken coop here in beautiful Virginia.
That's right, we're home. So what are we doing here?
Well, we thought we would take a stab at giving some campground reviews to help fellow travelers on their trips, especially if you're going into an area where you haven't been before. So we'll start sharing some knowledge.
That's right. And back in June we did a trip. We traveled back to the Midwest to see our fathers, and we were able to stay at a couple of campgrounds. We stayed at two. We also boondocked at my dad's house, and the second campground is Weko Beach.
It is. We were originally supposed to stay there because I had a family reunion planned, and it was going to be at Weko Beach. And so we booked at this campground sight unseen. And so there's some positives and negatives to the campground at Weko Beach.
That's right. I guess one of the main, or the big positive is that it's right next to Lake Michigan, which is a spectacular lake, ocean.
It is. And the other thing about being right there on Lake Michigan is that you're also adjacent to Warren Dunes State Park. And while Weko Beach does not allow dogs on the beach, the entrance to Warren Dunes State Park right there is the dog beach. So if you've seen us before, you know we have two dogs. One's older, one's younger, and the younger dog has a lot of energy. So I love to take her on long walks and hikes. And that was really, really nice to be able to take her out, give her some exercise, explore the water, and really enjoy the day.
Literally, if you want to go to the beach, you want to camp and go walk to the beach, I don't think it gets any easier. This is the quickest, easiest walk I've ever seen to the beach.
So at Weko Beach Campground, there are three fingers, as Carl likes to call them. There's a south campground, a west campground, and an east campground. And we stayed in the east campground?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. And you know, it's a back-end site. It was about $35 a night. Not going to break the bank. It was water and electric. There are seasonal sites, and then there are, you know, just kind of regular sites. So the seasonal sites I thought were done up pretty well. You could tell people had put in some time and put in little patios, and were kind of there to have like the whole Tiki Beach weekend.
There's a lot of seasonal sites. I'd say maybe half or slightly less than half was seasonal sites. And so when we were there, about half of the half was occupied.
Right, because we were there during COVID. Right.
Yeah, which is kind of nice because when they're not there, they're quiet. So.
That's true. It was also a little bit muddy when we were there. But looking at the loops, I would not, for the life of me, stay in the South Loop. Here's why. It's basically a big open field, and there's absolutely no privacy, just really isn't my cup of tea. So if you're looking to spend a few days there, I would avoid the South Loop. The East Loop where we were is okay. I think the West Loop is better because it's at a little bit higher elevation. It's closer to the walkways where you can kind of see up into the dunes and into the lake. And I thought it was just generally a little bit nicer.
I think those two loops are similar. Our East Loop did have like a big circle when you came in, and then that narrowed down, which we were in that narrow part, and then you get back to the back. The back of these things were weird, or the West and the East were weird because you get back and you're like, there's no way to turn around, and so and the seasonal sites that are back there are like put up signs. They're like, don't come back here. So. That was a little weird.
Yeah,
so
we've done some kayaking throughout our lifetime. It reminded me of going into West Virginia where you didn't think you were going to come out of a holler. So that's just me.
Yeah, I have some video footage of one of the most unique, and we'll make sure to put that in there.
We will.
At this spot.
We will.
So the positives: going to the beach, good price. We did have electricity and water. It was a little weird because the water was not on the correct side of the station, so we had to run a hose across the ground and get to our water spot. But that's
but we
doable.
have enough hose to do that.
We had enough hose to make it.
On the con side, and I don't know if this was just because it is the coronavirus pandemic, I don't generally use comfort stations a lot when we're just staying a couple days, or bathhouses.
Did you ever go into one at all?
No, and here's why. He told me, don't go in there. He goes, you're not going to like it. There's ants in the urinal. And I was like, that was all I needed to know about the level of cleanliness And
not that you use a urinal much, but
right, no, I'm not, and I'm also not an overly prissy person.
let's see how scary this is. Not exactly the cleanest.
But right then and there, I was like, okay, I'm out. We're just, 100% camper this entire time.
I'll throw this in here, and I'm sure there were quiet hours, and I'm sure there's some type of activity from employees working there, but I literally didn't see anybody come down the loop for security or what have you, or clean the bathroom. So I think that was a little bit lacking. There was a person at the gate, which was to charge fees for people to get into the parking for the beach, and then there was a camp store. Did you go in was there a camp store? A few things, but you could buy ice, I think, and firewood, but there wasn't a lot of supervision or oversight going on in the campground, as far as I could tell.
So again, we were there during 2020, June 2020, and that could be influenced by the coronavirus. So, I mean, it could be different in other seasons, but overall, I mean, I think if you're coming down 94 and you need a place to stay, this is very convenient off of Red Arrow Highway there, less than a couple of miles from the interstate. It would be perfect for an overnight or maybe a little bit of a respite on a long trek. So don't count it out. But I think if you're going to want to stay someplace for a longer period of time, I would check out Warren Dunes State Park Campground. That's what I intend to do when we have my family reunion rescheduled, is potentially stay at the state park campground and see if it's a different experience.
At least the rangers are coming around like
exactly
enforcing the rules. Man.
Right.
And to be honest with you, it wasn't bad there, but we did have tent campers next to us, and as RVers, when I see tent campers, I'm like, because they're going to be outside. They're probably there more for a party versus like other things. So anyway, we had tent campers right next to us. Literally, their stakes were right on the line. Our slide out was like feet from each other. So they did stay up till like about midnight talking, and we could hear it. But the great thing about having an RV or camper is you just kind of turn the air conditioning up a little bit, drown out the noise a little bit. And I'll point out too, I have in my notes I checked there, and I have it in video. But I think when we rolled in, the surface is not paved; it's sand or gravel.
Yeah.
And I think when we had a little difficult time parking because on the opposite side of our site was just a slope, a dune, and so we had a hard time turning it in to get it in there. I think I mentioned it right off the bat when we got there. I'm like, if it rains, this is going to be a mud pit. And it did rain.
It was a mud pit.
And so our Earl was parked right next to a pile of mud, and people I think tried to avoid the mud and actually walked between Earl and our campsite a little bit to get
Earl,
around.
by the way, is not a mule. He is a gray F350, and he's named Earl because he's Earl Grey.
Yeah, I think it's the first vehicle I've ever named, and I'm in love with it so far. So
okay.
So what did you just tell me we could do for Christmas for Earl?
Oh, Carl wants an air compressor to air up tires and things on the road, and then he wants an air horn. I think he might have been watching a little bit too much KYD, by the way.
And I was thinking we can use the air compressor, like we can get a valve adapter for the bicycles. We can air up our bicycle tires.
Yeah, I want to see this because I think he's going to be blowing some tubes there.
I think we're getting a little extravagant. It's a pretty standard truck. It's just an XLT base model, and so not Platinum or King Rancher, but we'll keep adding on to it to make it more fancy. But hopefully it lasts a long time and pulls this rig and maybe a future rig.
Gotcha.
In the future.
But you're adjacent to the downtown area, and you could literally, we like a good walk.
Yeah, we walk.
So you could literally walk out of the park, just keep going straight up, go into the downtown area. There are cute shops, restaurants, different things going on that during normal non-coronavirus times, we could have had a nice microbrew, a little bite to eat, visited a couple shops, and really been in a really, good place. That was really not accessible to us, one, due to some of the restrictions that were going, but two, we were really limiting ourselves because we were visiting with my father, and were we on our way to visit with Bob?
No, we're coming from.
Yeah. So we were visiting two guys. One's 80, one's 85. So, you know, when you're really trying to protect your loved ones, you're not really throwing yourself out there in June in coronavirus. So that's another plus, is that you are within walking distance to stretch your legs and maybe, you know, grab a nice beer downtown.
That's right.
So when we do these campground reviews, we're going to try to do this on the G scale. And the G scale is a go scale for all you people with dirty minds.
Like going Gordon's.
Yes. So with that being said, we're going to go from 1 through 5, with 1 is a 1 go and 5 is a 5 go. So if it's a 5 go, that means, you know, definitely stay there, put it on your list, etc. 1 go means maybe for a quick overnight or kind of avoid it. And really, for me, it really depends on how you're looking at Weko Beach State Park. For the purposes where I had reserved it, which is a family reunion is occurring in a building on that space, you know, we would have been completely fine. If I was spending like 5 to 7 days there, I would have been bored after like 2 days. So my purpose there was to stay with family. So it met my purpose. So for my purpose, I'm not even going to give it a go. But for a vacation purpose, I'm going to say this is a 1 or a 2 go.
Okay.
If you are just doing a couple days to be close to the lake, maybe rest up as you're heading much further north in Michigan, you just want to take a break, I'm going to give it like a 3 go, because you've got everything you need there. You've got a grocery store adjacent. You can restock, refuel, rejuvenate, and go. But for me, this is not a destination campground.
I agree. It's definitely somewhere between 1 and 3. And but if you were going to go to the beach, I think you could give it a 3. And, if you're tent campers or what have you. But yeah, not the best campground, not so clean, and not well kept. Yeah.
So that's it on our scale.
What would you give in all the campgrounds that you visited? What would you give? What's the top level? What's the best campground?
Oh my gosh.
On the spot.
On the
I know wine is.
Spot.
You just mentioned it a while ago, off camera.
You know what, for me, and this is just me, I really still enjoyed Watchman Campground at Zion National Park. Partially because of how it was lit, partially because of watching the sun go down. I mean, I just really enjoyed that campground. And I think a close second, gosh, we did some whitewater kayaking in North Carolina. And we stayed at, was it the Tellico State Park?
I don't think it was. We have a video though, right? We're talking about the one.
It was in Tellico Plains, yeah.
Yeah, it was downstream of the whitewater section. So.
And that was, well, you had the water rushing that was right beside you. It was super. I mean, it was a very small park, but there was a really nice hike that we did after kayaking one day. And I literally just had like the best time on that trip until I like bashed in my hand and like had to like super glue my knuckles shut. But that's a whole other story.
That's it. I agree. I mean, I don't know if that's the destination that makes it so wonderful or not, but that campground, Watchman Campground. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, could we get back in if we tried to? Like, we actually booked the reservation for that. Like the day the system opened, like the minute it opened, I booked that reservation, and I still couldn't get on riverfront. I had to do one layer back.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the
Highly
magic is
sought
on getting those reservations.
Right.
I'd actually go to, for my second, I'd probably go to Canada, actually. So I'd go to our first campground. What was it called?
Graves? Not Graves. Graves Island?
Yeah, Graves Island. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because when I rolled in there, you know, I get driven all day. I'm like, this isn't that nice. And then then I'm like,
grouchy. He's all like, and then he's like, oh my God, this is great.
it was raining and cold,
I know.
Which was
Exactly.
it was almost July in Richmond, which was great to be wet and cold.
Yeah.
So
I think the other thing for us is we had come to Weko Beach campground from Indiana Dunes State Park. And we were there for one night, right?
That's right.
But we got in a great hike, also really good access to the beach, wider spaces, you know, nicer place.
Typical state park, maybe.
Typical kind of a state park thing, and that's what we're used to, which is also kind of a budget find, except for that gate fee. But with that in mind, I mean, so I'm not bashing Weko Beach State Park, or Weko Beach Parks, whatever you want to call it. But you know, it's definitely.
And this was an estate park. It was actually a city park.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sorry. It's the city of Bridgman too. Yeah.
Bridgman.
I might have said Stevensville, but it's Bridgman.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and please subscribe because my husband whines about how many viewers he has.
I don't have very many. Maybe this will help. Maybe this will help. Getting personality into the video would be helpful.
No, ma'am. Mabel, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
What's welcome?
No, ma'am.
Where you
She's
working
gonna
all the
pull.
neighbors?